Oh, hey there, Vital Reader watchers. You know, by the time the 2020 Norco Sight had been made available to the public, we already had a 27.5-inch wheeled model that we were having a blast with out on the trails, logging some miles, doing some big climbs, and more importantly, some big descents. It goes without saying that our first look, we were pretty smitten with this bike, but we've had several months now to log even more miles, to have even more fun, and we're finally ready to share where we stand with this thing. Hang tight, and we're going to dig into the things that we loved about this bike, some areas where we think it could make some improvements, and how it held up under all of the abuse, and more importantly, the rocks that we threw at this thing.
Along with the new bike, Norco pushed their ride-aligned philosophy. A close examination of the geometry chart, not just your own size, will have prospective riders realizing that every size of the Sight has its own geometry. Mid-center, reach, seat angle, all of it is adjusted and optimized based on their pile of anthropomorphic data that Norco collected. This means that our sized medium should feel to us at 5 foot 9 inches as the XL does to a 6 foot 3 inch rider. With particular respect to mid-center, this has been a battle cry of many riders on larger sizes. Norco heard you, and they made something that you should be very excited about. The Sight has some new wave details we've begun to appreciate on more bikes these days. On the underside of the top tube, there are bosses to hold aftermarket storage options or even your frame-mounted pump. A full-sized water bottle fit nicely in our medium frame, as did our spare inner tube. Going above and beyond, the Sight comes with a clear frame protection kit installed. The underside of the Sight sports rubber protection in the shuttle zone as well as the bottom bracket area, while sufficient protection on the alloy chainstay keeps things on the bike incredibly quiet on the trail. Speaking of on the trail, we'll just come out and say it. The 2020 Norco Sight is the epitome of a modern, aggressive, all-mountain bike. Its geometry is transformative. The suspension works incredibly well in a variety of conditions and lends riders to a depth of confidence no bike in this category has yet to deliver. This bike is impressive in all manner of trails and conditions, and seemingly so across all sizes. The Sight is not without flaw, but we felt it best to be clear that on most any objective measure we tossed the bike against, it measured up to and outperformed. This bike was ridden by multiple testers, each drawing a positive conclusion that the Sight was amazing. Sitting on the Sight with a 175mm dropper at full extension provides an upright riding position with proper weight distribution. When riding different bikes back to back, the Sight did have an active feel to the suspension. It is not a rocket ship on the climbs, but it is far from a pig. The 77.3 degree effective seat tube angle on our medium kept the rider weight forward and legs pumping happily along. Technical switchbacks, either up or downhill, did not have us noticing the 63.5 degree head angle. Norco is clearly up to some voodoo magic, as many of the features that make the bike descend so well remained masked during the countless miles of climbing we logged. Along rolling terrain and descents, the Sight's standout feature is bump absorption. Rather, when it comes to small and mid-sized hit, the Sight seems to pave the trail beneath you. Time after time, in seas of otherwise endless rock gardens, not once was the Sight put out of sorts or pushed offline. When it came to riding even the roughest of trails, the Norco took all we could throw its way and shrugged, as if to say, "Is that all?" We truly had a hard time believing this bike only had 150mm of travel in the rear. When it comes to suspension ramp, there is a bit of preference at play. Some progression is appreciated by most riders, but the degree of that ramp is where things tend to turn personal. The Norco Sight does have a progressive suspension design, but the rate of that ramp isn't as pronounced as the new Transition Scout or the Santa Cruz Bronson. Both are bikes we've held in very high regard. We found bottom on the Sight more often than we would have liked. Over the course of a few weeks, we stayed in contact with Norco engineers and played with front end height, suspension pressures, fore and aft, as well as tuning options therein. What we would have liked to done was add another volume spacer and be on our way, but Norco wasn't having it. They stood by their design and had us playing with other features.
We've got our information from Mr. David Cox, and he said, "Yo bro, we have different ways of setting these up. Give this a go." So we're going to put 81 PSI on the fork. We're going to put 203 PSI in the rear shock, and they recommended that I have 20 millimeters of spacer underneath my stem. So 81, 203, 20. All right. 203. Okay. So we'll take that out. For reference, that little hiss right there, that's the air pressure coming out of the hose, because there's actually air in there. It's not coming out of the shock. For all those folks that think you lose air, it ain't how it works, player. All right. Next, we're gonna go over and we're gonna put 81 pissies in our Lyric Super Duper. Wow. Okay. 81 pissies on the mark. It's measuring time. Let's see what our spacers are. Probably take that little spacer there and put it underneath. We're gonna lift the front end. I'm not gonna lie, this is counterintuitive. I usually like a very low front end on my bikes. We are implementing what the manufacturer recommended to squeeze the most performance out of this sight. Here's the thing about the Norco Sight. It's freaking sick. So, if we can make it sicker, then that's what we're gonna do. And there we go. Fun fact, pretty sure that's a bottle opener.
Agree or disagree, we were able to get the sight to behave more as we would have liked, but never got the full ramp that we would have preferred. Despite not achieving the performance that we desired, we have to concede that the Norco works exactly as it should, and is, objectively, a well-performing system. The riding position and cornering manners of the sight were reflective of any number of bikes using the super slack, longish front style of geometry. Much like the new Transition Scout, the sight asks for a centered rider, pushing the front end to reap maximum dividends in the corner. The riding position and cornering manners of the sight were reflective of any number of bikes using the super slack, longish front style of geometry. Much like the new Transition Scout, the sight asks for a centered rider, pushing the front end to reap maximum dividends in the corners. Comply, and you will be treated to all-day grip through the turns, even those filled with rocks and holes. This same bulldog approach is applied in lower angle rocks as well. Keep centered and the sight will track beautifully, but the rider has to be willing to commit. If you get too far off the back, the front won't be properly weighted and things can get a tad light. This methodology is at the heart of the sight. It does in fact demand a rider with a heavy hand to make it light up. The sight will deliver confidence to a timid rider, but you have to be willing to trust it. Less aggressive riders may be better suited to look towards the optic or other shorter travel options, simply because there isn't much point in lugging around the extra bike if you aren't going to get a bit aggro. There were days we weren't feeling tip-top and just wanted to go for a spin. The Norco felt like any other slack bike and nothing too special, albeit maybe a bit heavy on the climb. To that end, we have to say the sight is not for everybody. At the time of the launch, our sight had a C1 build moniker, but is now just one permutation of the builds in Norco's custom program. Retail for the carbon frame, spec'd with the EXO1 build and RockShox suspension kit, is $66.97 USD. The EXO1 kit is just that, sans the carbon cranks, where instead, riders will get the alloy descendant model. Code RSC brakes with 200 and 180mm rotors front and back stop the bike, which rolls on DT Swiss M1700 wheels, wrapped in EXO Plus Maxxis Minion DHF and DHR tires. A top-tier Lyric Ultimate fork is mated to a Super Deluxe Select Plus rear shock to round out the build kit. Little details like the Deity bars and ergon contact points are nice, but are juxtaposed with a stem that looks like an unrefined paperweight. Complaining about an OEM stem should indicate how deeply we're digging for quibbles these days. The build for the money lands the Norco Sight right in the mix of prices when compared to other brands. For comparable builds, you'll find some bikes for less, others will run you more. The beauty is that through Norco's Build Your Ride, Ride Your Build program, customers can taper the cost in various places, or ball out of control if that's your thing. How did the Sight hold up under our antics? With a pre-installed frame protection kit, it's no surprise that the paint still looks great. No pivots or parts came loose, and no strange noises came to light, no matter how much we tried. Again and again, the goods from RockShox continue to impress. The Super Deluxe was always supple, and the Lyric Ultimate is just outstanding. Highly tunable and always at the ready, this is a stellar combination. Our 175mm reverb had to be bled not once, but twice to finally keep a consistent performance level. We know RockShox has worked hard to revise this product, and to be fair, even including older generations, this was the first one to give this garage so many fits. The DT Swiss M1700 wheels are reasonably light, have a nice profile, and roll well. Even though the pressure on our Maxxis EXO Plus tires never dropped below 26 psi, we managed to dent the M1700s in multiple locations, one of which was enough to cause a small leak, requiring regular airing up before each ride. Whether the Sight dishes out that much punishment, or the M1700s weren't up for the job, we were a bit bummed to smoke a wheel so quickly on this high of a build. So, what's the bottom line? Well, by any objective measure, the Norco Sight is simply awesome. That doesn't mean it is for everybody, or that we didn't have our quibbles. No doubt the ride-aligned methodology is not cheap for Norco, and for that, customers may pay a premium in the overall value department. And while there is nothing to stop you from putting your own volume spacer in the rear shock, Norco has taken a somewhat dogmatic approach to suspension tuning. All of that aside, there was not one single occasion where the Sight left us wanting for more. Truly, a rider like Sam Blankensop should test this bike, because no rider short of his ability could take this bike to the limit or outside its comfort zone. And to us, that is money in the bank. Make sure you head to norco.com to build your own Sight, and check out Vital MTB for the full feature and review. As always, if you have questions, make sure you leave them in the comments. See you on the trails.